let's just sew whatever. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making the Regina Phalange tote from Sincerely Jen Pattern Company. This bag is so cute, it's so cute. It has been a while since we've seen a handbag released from Jenny, and I am in love. This is the third time I've made this bag, and this was my best work, some of my best work yet. There are 3 sizes included in this pattern, and this is the small, which is such a great little handbag. It's got a zippered pocket in the front. 2 zippers lead to the same little section. It has a slip pocket in the back. It has a Benjamin in the way. Can you move? Thank you. It has a zipper panel to keep the bag closed. And then it's got a divider, fully divided center. I added this fancier slip pocket, and then it has a zipper pocket with overlay. It's so good. I do have a cutting video for this bag as well if you're interested in some tips and tricks in cutting it and kind of hearing more about how I interfaced it, but mostly Decaville light in the sides, Decaville heavy. That's it. That's it for interfacing. I used a Luxe vinyl that I carry on my website. All the hardware is from my website. And the lining is Renew Canvas, which is recycled water bottles, also available on my website. So I cannot wait to make this bag with you. I hope you will subscribe and purchase this pattern and sew it. Yeah. We are going to get started by making our straps for the bag. I have changed this up a little bit, and I'm doing double-sided straps for pretty much all my straps. So I've cut 1.75 by the length of vinyl and 2 by the length of vinyl to make our crossbody, and then I have our grab handles as well. This is strap connectors. Here's my handles. Okay. And I did decide to increase the length of my handles by about 2 inches or so. I like the 16-inch handle. I think it's really cute and proportional with the bag, but I just wanted to try one a little bit bigger. I have several bobbins. You're going to want at least 3 bobbins for this bag. And if you're making the large size, you're probably going to want like 4 or 5 bobbins loaded and ready to go. But I'm going to get started by folding my handles into the center. And with a normal 4-fold strap, you would want to leave a little bit of a gap to make room for the bulk to sit, but with this kind of a handle, you don't need to leave much of a gap, if any. So I've cut 1 to 2 inches wide, and then I've cut the other to 1.75. You could even do 1.5 if you wanted. And I'm just going to eyeball the half measurement on this one. So I feel like making double-sided straps is really good for domestic machines. It's less bulky to sew through, especially if you're pairing like a vinyl with a cotton. And it just kind of brings your print and your solid together a little bit more throughout the bag. So we'll do that. And then I like to grab some 1/4-inch double-sided tape so that it's not in your stitch where you're going to be stitching, to set them together. Oh my gosh, this is so pretty. Okay, so and I am just eyeballing the location of this to be in the middle. And then our tape should hold while I work on the other one, and then we can sew them both at the same time. If you did both at 2 inches wide, sometimes I worry that there's like a little bit of, there's not much room for error if you're doing them the same exact size. And I think it's nice to see that little pop of the solid on the printed side. So this is my preference when doing double-sided straps. And they are time consuming because it's a little bit more to fold. But just like with anything else, the more you do it, the faster you're going to be. The double-sided tape that I'm using, as well as all these materials, are available on my website at mormino.com. I feel like I get quite a few comments here and there, people asking like, oh, where did you get your magnets on your machine? Where did you get this? Where did you get that? And the answer is I sell pretty much most of it on my website. So you can support my channel a little bit more and my business, of course, if you purchase from our website. All right, and then when I go to top stitch these, I am going to go around all 4 sides, and we're going to do like 1/8 of an inch from the outer edge of the accent fabric. And then I've got this little bit of excess that I'm just going to trim away. Just to make them nice and even. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. We'll just set that off to the side. I'm using a Tex 70 thread from Amon Sewing, or Amon Thread, I guess, but I got it from Sunny Sewing. I will say I mostly use the Tex 70 from Amon, but my preference is actually the Tex 90. I was sewing a bag with it because the color I needed was a better match with that, and I was like, ooh, I don't know what the difference, I mean, obviously I know there's a difference, but I really liked working with it a little bit more than the 70. But Tex 70 has way more colors in the range, and it's also a smaller spool, so those pros kind of outweigh. I'm just slowly folding that down the middle. I'm working my way from the center out to create or to prevent any rippling, because if you're starting at one end and working your way down, there's some stretching that happens which causes twisting in the strap. Tension issues on your machine can also cause twisting in the strap. However, most times once the strap is on your bag, you don't notice it that much. So if it's something that happens to you and you don't feel like you have the energy to really play with that on your machine, etc., like it, I know it sounds terrible, but the bag still holds things in the end. You know, if you're not in an area where you can sell your bags for as much as you'd like or anything like that, you know. Probably bad advice, but I'm just saying it would be okay. So I'm kind of skipping a few inches, sticking it down, and then sliding my hand across to press it into place. Helps it go a little bit faster. Holding it up to that line, and then again, find center area. Yeah, the double-sided straps are a lot more challenging for the crossbody, but so satisfying in the end. So worth it, I think. Okay, and then I'll grab my 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape. Sometimes I feel like bag making is like 70% tape. And then in order to make sure that it peels off evenly without the tape ripping, or the backing of the tape ripping, you really want to press it down nicely. And then instead of peeling this up all at once, I'm going to just do a small section at a time, lining this up. And there are tricks with double-sided straps to like hide your strap ends if you would like to do that. I don't feel like strap ends that are raw are really that terrible myself. Doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, you can go the extra mile for that, or you can use strap end hardware, etc. And then here you can see I've kind of got some unevenness, and I might actually, I'm going to peel this tape off so it doesn't stick to my machine, but it can kind of help with bulk at your strap slide adjuster if you wanted to like slide that over the end, because you're never going to see it, you know. So I'll start with this end as I top stitch. And my stitch length is set at 5. And I did not use a full bobbin, so I'm kind of keeping an eye out for it to run out, but I think it'll last through the straps at the very least. But get out of here. Oh, so close. So close. That's okay. I'm going to use another half-empty bobbin because we're about to be working on like construction, and so I find if it runs out during construction, not top stitching, it's not as detrimental to the bag. And like right here is not the most ideal, but it will be okay. So now I can grab my crossbody hardware, and I only have one snap hook at the moment, but I'll get another, and I can at least make my strap 75% of the way with only one snap hook. So we're going to slide this around the end, and then you can see it's kind of cute and way less bulk. And I'll do a little box stitch. Okay, so this, oh, I guess that makes that the back of my strap, but that's okay. It's still really pretty and kind of like a little secret pop of color. So there's that, and then I'll just grab my last lever snap hook and add a rivet through it, so I can finish that later. So now we get to dive into making the actual bag. I'm going to pull up the pattern. We're going to start by prepping our zippers. Yeah. Prep our zippers. So for the main closure with one pull attached, we'll need about 13 inches, and you could even cut that just a little bit longer if you wanted to. And we'll attach our zipper pulls in a little bit. Number 5 zipper tape front pocket with one pull attached. And you do need to be precise with those front zippers. Okay, so that's that. The interior divided pocket gets 2 zipper pulls, but if you want to just have one zipper pull so there's more room on that, you can, but it is handy to have those 2 zipper pulls on there, especially so you know when you start to put the bag together which one's which. But if you think about it, when you have those 2 pulls on there, you're losing, what is it, like maybe 3/8 of an inch, half an inch of room in getting into that divider by having the 2 pulls. So if you know that your Kindle will fit in between that 11 3/4 opening, but it won't fit into an 11 1/4 opening, you know, that kind of a thing, you'd want to keep that in mind. No, 9 1/4, not 3. So I'm just going to add 1 to that, but I am going to clip my, oh, they're in here, my zipper tabs to it, so that I know that this is my interior zipper that gets the zipper tabs, because this is so close to the zippered pocket zipper. So now I know a little bit easier which is which. Okay, so this is my zippered pocket with overlay zipper. This is my main zipper. And so for this one, what I can do to further distinguish it for later is I'm going to go ahead and pull this apart and start by turning the ends of it at an angle, and then I'll kind of melt it together. And you can also sew that together with your machine, whatever your preference might be. This is definitely a tricky concept to get, but once you get it, like, it saves time. And I can't easily sew on just zipper tape with this machine or any industrial, really, so I find it nice to be able to do this and just kind of melt that side together, and it'll set for when you're ready to do your recessed zipper panel. Okay, and then these are my front pocket zippers. I mentioned in my cutting video that if you do not want to do any of the additional pockets on this bag that are like a little more challenging, especially if you are newer to sewing, you can omit them. You're just going to kind of cut it out a little bit differently, and I'll explain that as I'm going. But those are all of our zippers, and we're going to go ahead and grab our front panel with those zippers and work on that after I sew my strap connectors, just so these are ready to go. So it's a little bit later in the pattern, but I think it'll be good to prep it and then it's ready. I cut this into 1 chunk. So then I will cut this into my 3-inch sections, but we're going to fold it so that it becomes 1 inch wide, and then I'm going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. One that I made, I did 3/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch, and I think it looked really nice, but you can do whatever you want. You could also add a strip of waterproof canvas down the center of this for structure and longevity for your bag, especially if you're using a vinyl that you're not sure the quality on and how it's going to hold up. And it helps reduce any stretching over time. All right, so I'm going to just leave this together for now, and we'll move on to our front. We'll get it started. All right, so we want right sides of our fabrics together. So I've got my exterior and my lining. I'm going to clip this. So if you were not going to do these zippers and you want it to be maybe 2 slip pockets like the back panel is, then just don't cut this part out. You're going to cut double of that front pocket. So you would need 4 same 4 lining pieces, but you wouldn't cut your corner little notch. So I'm going to shorten my stitch length to about a 4, and I already marked out that 3/8 inch seam allowance so that I don't mess this up. And we're going to sew around that back stitching at the beginning and the end. For both sides. And decreasing your stitch length makes it so that you can get around that curve a little bit easier, and it'll help so you don't see your stitches on the outside. But you don't want your stitches to be too small that you end up perforating your materials. Going back to top stitching, so I increased it back to 5 inches. And we are just going to add some little snips into that curve. We'll go ahead and trim that down a little bit. I also mentioned this in my cutting video, but if your machine does not allow you to do a 3/8 inch seam allowance on your zipper, well, you should be okay because you're not. But you could just do a 1/4 inch, but trim an 1/8 of an inch before you start sewing. But now as I'm saying it, I'm like, wait, what does that matter? So just adding a couple little snips to help that. And we're going to turn this the other way. So now wrong sides are together. And we're going to roll that seam between our fingers. And if you can iron this, it is helpful. But I cannot iron the vinyl, so I'm not going to. And then you also want to kind of pull your lining to the back if you can. If you have a seam roller, you can roll your seam to help it stay. Yeah, we're just going to clip that together. Okay, there's that. And now we're going to be adding our zippers here. One little trick that I've kind of come up with as I'm putting this together is lay the exterior onto the lining as best you can, and then line up your zipper, because that's going to meet that outside edge. So this just helps me get it in place exactly where it needs to go. So it's lined up all the way, and then I'll clip that in place. Remove the lining fabric. Okay. Because if we were to sew the zipper down with that lining in place, well, it wouldn't work anymore now, would it? This is the bottom, and we want to make sure that it is zipping up. So we're good. My stitch length is back to a 5, and I'm starting at the base. I'm going to back stitch, and then I'm going to continue to sew up. I ran out of bobbin just then. No, it cut. I don't know. Something happened. Wasn't good. Not ideal. But at least it sewed enough to keep the bottom in place. tack. Let's try it again. Okay, then we're going nice and slow around that curve. I'm using nylon zippers, so I'm not worried about sewing over the teeth. And now that is nicely secured, and it does not go all the way to the top edge, and there's a reason for that. All right, so now I've got this side done. We can lay this lining up the side edge again. Remove our clips and line up the bottom edge and the side. And then clip just the zipper to the exterior fabric. You can use double-sided tape to hold your zipper in place as well if you would like. And again, you want to make sure that your zippers will zip up. And that's it. If you want to add 2 rows of stitching to that part of your bag, you can. You could do 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch, but it is not necessary at all. And then we can add the lining fabric to that. And we're just going to sew around the side and the bottom at 1/8 to 1/4 inch. Oh, wait. I think we were supposed to sew the top first, but that's okay. We can still do that. Yeah. So what we want to do is move the exterior fabric out of the way, and we're going to sew this at like a 5/8 inch seam allowance, getting as close to and sewing through the zipper. You should just barely catch the top of that zipper, and then we're going to trim away the excess at the top. And this is helping reduce bulk when we go to sew the panel together. But I just think this looks so pretty. If you wanted to divide this pocket, there's nothing saying you can't sew down the center, and then this pocket and this pocket would be separate. If you didn't want to see that, you could kind of lift up, mark your center, and stitch under here like this, but it would be a little tricky. But that's good there. And now we would prep these connectors, but mine are already prepped. And I'm going to measure 3 inches for each one, making a little line. And then I've got a little trick. I noticed that when I put my connectors on, they would get a little uneven for me. So I'm going to show you what I did that kind of helped me. We're going to grab our square rings. And loop those through. And then we are going to baste that together at 1/2 inch. So I'm folding my connector, and then instead of basting it like 1/4, I'm doing it at 1/2 inch. Which I know you're like, yeah, you said that. But we are going to lay that connector so that there's 1/2 inch within the seam allowance. And like I said, I would kind of get a little confused. Not confused, but I wouldn't always line it up just right. But now I can just follow that stitch line. I can lay that stitch line up against my seam, and then I know I for sure have 1/2 inch in there. So we're going to lay our strap connectors. The measurement varies for each size. I'm just going to bring my center mark out, make that little measurement. And that gets placed next to that seam, next to that line close to your zipper. And we're just gonna, I'm gonna baste that on and sew all the way down. And again, now I can line up my stitch line with the top edge of my panel, and I know I've got 1/2 inch in that seam allowance. I am good. I got it covered. And now we can lay our top panel on top of that, and we're going to sew at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And you could clip or tape this down, whatever suits your fancy. If you're using a thicker vinyl for those connectors, you may have some spots, like your pieces may not line up perfectly, and that's because of the bulk of that connector. So that's why I used this thinner vinyl for my connector. There's that. And then we're going to flip this up. And depending on how long your zippers were, you might have a hard time folding this seam down. If that is the case, what we're going to do is we're going to snip just past the seam into the seam allowance. Just a little snip. And then this part can remain facing up, and this part will come down. And we're still going to top stitch along the bottom so that our connector is pointing up. We're just going to go slow. And what that also does is it's creating less bulk for later when we go to sew the side seam. So you can see this is pointing up. And if you want, you can kind of tack that down. You could also fold it flat when you tack it. Again, if your zipper allows. It may be that there's just too much bulk there and it doesn't want to. So don't force it, because then you're going to run into that problem later when you attach your side panels. There's going to be just too much bulk to try to fight. Okay. And then we're going to be adding a rivet. This is optional, but it will help with the strength of your bag. We're just going to add a rivet through the connector and through the lining, and it's going to go a little ways below, and that is so you're avoiding going through this bulk. It's going to sit right under that. So we'll do that in a little bit, and then I think I'm going to add my nameplate to the top edge, that top band as well. So now we're going to work on the other side. And this is where, like I said, if you didn't want to do those zippers, you could just double up on this. And this is going to be a little bit different. We are going to be putting right sides together. Make sure you're clipping along the top edge so that your print's not upside down or anything. And then we're going to find the center of our lining piece. Make a little snip, and then we're going to measure that two and whatever, depending on what size of the bag you're making. We're going to mark that. And I think I'm going to try something a little different than the pattern suggests. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this, and that is so you don't see a little peek of the lining at all. And I'll explain that in a minute. So lining that up on the lining. It's going to go on the outside of that line with 1/2 inch in your seam allowance of that connector. We're going to clip this together and sew that at 3/8 of an inch. And you may want to add Decaville Light to that lining piece. It would be helpful for the structure of your bag if you're using like a thinner material. I don't know. I felt like it was totally fine, but yeah. All right. So we're going to top stitch this down and flat. And there shouldn't be any issues with top stitching. Like we had because of those zippers. Got a little thread sneaking out. Get out of here. All right, so I'm gonna top stitch this at 1/4 of an inch instead of 3/8. No, I think it'll be okay. The only issue that I can think of is that the front and back aren't going to look quite as similar because technically this piece is going to be 1/8 of an inch taller. Like literally, that's what we're talking about. So I'm going to press this flat. If you want to add a nameplate here instead of on the top band, you can do that as well. And I like to fold it to make sure that my lining fabric is tucked behind so you don't see a little peek of it on this side. I'm just praying my bobbin lasts. Come on. Oh, it did. Good job. Thank you. Okay, and then we're going to line this up along the bottom edge. Yeah. That is exactly what I was hoping it would do. And so far, the materials I'm using, I don't feel like a domestic machine would really have any issues so far. Any major issues. But now, this just sits a little bit higher up so that when I rivet and sew this on, you don't see that lining fabric. Not that it's a huge issue, but something that I noticed and was like, it's not my favorite, but it's also not that big of a deal. So then we're going to top stitch this. You can do anywhere from 1/4 to 1/8. And then we're going to mark out those points for adding our rivets. And that is going to go through the exterior slip pocket to help it from kind of gaping open. So like, since that whole piece, this will kind of ground it and keep it together. So I'll go do that. And we're gonna add rivets for all 4 connectors. And I am just using 9x9 rivets, 9mm. And just be careful on that slip pocket as you're poking those holes. You don't want the slip pocket to kind of shift since it's a little bit wants to lay open. And then we'll add the post and the cap. I know I'm not showing it, but it's because it's too much of a pain to like move my camera. Sorry, but if you don't know how to install a rivet, I do have videos on that if you are interested. Okay. So there's that, and then you can see kind of keeps that pocket together, but you still have full access to that panel. All right, and then we do need to add our nameplate still. I think I'm gonna do it on the side with the zippers. I think the first one I made, I didn't add my name tag at all. My bad. And the second one I added it to the top band, and the top band looked nice. Setting those rivets. Oh man, those are a little uneven. It's okay. All right, so I'll add it to the center front at the top. Just throw that anywhere. Who cares? Who needs it? Okay. So I'm going to do this 1 1/2 and 1 3/8. Yeah. Because then it'll sit just right there. Okay, so there's our main panels done. And if you wanted to maybe add foam to these pieces, you could go ahead and baste your foam on now to be that full size. And then just kind of double check that these are lining up to be the same. They look good. Okay. So now we've got our side panels to prep here. And I'm going to start with my strap connectors. I'm going to fold the long raw edges in towards the center, and I'm going to top stitch these at 3/8 of an inch to start. That is not part of the instructions, but I really love the way it looks myself. And if you have tape that maybe doesn't stick as well as you would like, this will help your piece stay together a little bit better. I can hear that. There it went. I was like, I can hear that bobbin running out. All right, now we're on nice full bobbins instead of half empty ones. Okay, trim all those excess threads. Here we go, 3/8. All right, so we're gonna then measure on the back side. And I'm going to add tape to that, up to that line. And the measurement I'm using is in the pattern, so I'm not going to say it out loud. And this is where we're going to add our last little piece of hardware, except our zipper end, if you're using hardware instead of fabric. So we're going to peel back just a little bit. Line up that triangle ring right at that line you made and fold this to the back, peeling off the tape about the length of it. And so right now my connector measures about 7 inches tall. Okay, so put that triangle ring right at where you want it to fold. Press it down and then check that it measures about the same. Sometimes I'll also lay these next to each other to make sure they're good. So then we can peel off that tape all the way, and then we will center this. It measures about 5 inches wide. So I'm centering it at 2.5 so that there's about 2 inches along either side at the bottom. And that's good. Peel off the rest of the tape on that side. Looks good. And now we can top stitch that at 1/8 of an inch. And the same thing that I mentioned on the strap connectors applies here. If you want to add a little strip of waterproof canvas to strengthen or reduce the stretch of your vinyl, you can. And then I like to check. It's just a little off-centered compared to that center line, but that's okay. And then you can add a rivet to the center of that as well if you wanted to. Ooh, that one's a lot better. So yeah, I'm gonna add a little rivet. Just like that. Punch the hole, add the rivet. Good to go. All right, side panels are done, so now we can start attaching them. We're going to start with the side that has the zippers. And this should be a perfect fit. And this is another instance we've got to get as close to that 3/8 as possible, or our bottom band is not going to fit very well. So we're going to go slow. We're getting close to our zipper. So we can just kind of gently unzip, because your zipper is secure with that basting stitch. So just go slow. We're getting towards the bottom, so I'll zip that back up. And complete. And then before I go top stitching, I'm gonna attach our side panel. And once again, it should be a perfect fit. So we'll do 3/8 of an inch. Okay, now we're gonna top stitch it. I don't know why it's so satisfying to do this. We'll zip our zipper up so everything sits nicely. And we're gonna press that seam flat. We're top stitching on the side panel. Make sure everything sits nicely. This thread color matches this vinyl. So nice. Bag is so pretty. Okay, so now it's going to get a little bit trickier. We are going to be sewing this piece on and then top stitching. But then that last piece that we're going to need to top stitch, we'll have to top stitch it in like a loop, which can be a little tricky. I think I've called it before, not I think, I know I've called it before a tricky biscuit. Oh goodness. Okay. Bringing this around. And this is why you want to start with your zippers, because trying to top stitch this where the zipper is in the loop just adds another complicated layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this flat where we can. We're going to start up here, and then you're just going to kind of tuck the rest of the bag out of the way and just go slow. Feel that seam. Make sure you're top stitching only on the side panel and through that seam allowance. We're just going slow. Okay, and then bring your needle up, lift the foot, and then kind of smash your bag out of the way. Trim your threads. Good to go. Easy peasy, right? Dang almost every time. Okay, we're gonna trim up our threads now. I don't normally do that, but especially along the bottom, since we have that extra band we're gonna be adding, it can kind of sneak up. Oh, sorry. Kind of sneak up on us. So there is that. We have all of our centers marked, but just in case you've lost it or something, go ahead and re-mark it. Or it can't hurt to remark it because some things may have changed with your seam allowances, etc. And this is a bag you want to be pretty precise with those seam allowances. Now we're going to attach the bottom band. When I interfaced my pieces, I had already clipped these together. So we can go ahead and do that again. We're going to sew these at about a 3/8 inch. Dang it. Okay, 3/8 inch. All right, and then we're going to top stitch this open. And I just love the way this looks on the bag, truly. So pretty. We're gonna press that open. Butterflied. And just like 1/8 of an inch along each edge. And you can kind of do one side after the other, but I like to do this little rectangle just so that my stitches don't come undone over time, because we're not snipping through any of that. They're kind of backstitched and locked in. And then, yeah, trim those up. Then we're going to turn this right side out. And you can find your centers along the long side, because we have along the side, I guess along the fronts. So we've got our sides centered already figured out. So now we're going to find the front center and the back center. And I am truly just doing the gentlest, littlest snip I can do. I'm going to take a picture. Ben looks so sweet. Okay. So the top stitched seam goes along your side panel. And you're just going to clip that center. Right now we have right sides together. And what I'm going to do is add 3 clips and then find the other center. The top stitched seam goes along your side panel. So start there, add a couple clips, and then more importantly, kind of straighten it out. Find your centers on the front with the zippers, and you want to make sure you clip it together nicely, or you're going to have buckling on your zipper. You don't want that. And it may seem like there's puckering going on, but you can just gently kind of stretch that out a little bit. And then we're going to find the center along the back, clip that. And just make sure you don't lose your center. Now, the hardest part about this is that things could vary because of the thickness of vinyl. Your vinyl could have shrank when you added the Decaville Heavy, you know, all kinds of things. So if you need to staple this in place, you can, but the biggest thing is you do not want any shifting along those centers or it looks kind of funky. So now we're going to sew it in the round at a 3/8 inch. If you want to baste it in place first, you can. And you're just going to sew next to, but not through, that Decaville Heavy. And make sure you're keeping things lined up. This is definitely easier with like a cylinder arm, or if you remove the top part of your machine and kind of sew it in the round, but it's not too bad. Oh wow, I'm already done. All right. Okay, so now we're just going to pull that open and let that seam fall to the bottom, pointing down, and we're going to top stitch that. And if you are someone who likes to hide or pull your threads to the back and kind of tie off, go ahead and start by putting your needle into the side seam of your bag. Leave your threads long and start there. And just go slow, because you need to push that seam down and try to maintain an even stitch seam allowance. And now keep in mind this is the third time I have made this bag, so it is a little bit easier each time you make it. I'm going to pull my thread to the back. And now if I keep that stitch line the way it is, it's not going to quite line up. So I'm just lengthening it a little bit and manually inputting my needle, and then pulling that out, keeping my threads nice and long. And this is really the first time that I have needed to pull my threads to the back to tie off. Okay, and then the way I do it, I keep one set really long and one set a little less long, so I know which ones to tie together. And I'm going to do 3, we'll do 4 on each side, and then I'm going to tie them together. And then you could even add some glue there if you wanted to, or you can wait until after you attach the bottom panel to add your glue. Speaking of the bottom panel, I am going to mark and top stitch along, because I don't want my Decaville Heavy to lift when I turn the bag, so I find it really helps to top stitch this. Now if you wanted to, you could just do like the width of the foot around the bag and just follow your Decaville heavy, or you could mark an inch out, whatever you want to do, just go slow. This is not part of the directions, but it's something that I really like to do. And this pattern does not call for purse feet, but that doesn't mean you can't add them. Okay, and we're pulling on our thread. And we're going to stop with the thread in that hole. There we go. We're going to tie these together. And these together. And then just for fun, I'll tie all of them together. Melt it together. Alrighty, so I did snip the center line on the front and back, so we're going to start there. I'm going to add 3 clips, kind of spaced out, and then we're going to add 3 clips on the other side, marking the center. I did not mark out the side center. I need to do that really quick. So you're going to fold this in half, lining up the centers there, clipping, and working my way out for one side. And then the other. And we'll do it again. Clipping. Clipping. Go. And if it's a bag that you've made a bunch and you're pretty confident that things are going to work and fit together well, you could baste the long sides together first. Oh yeah, it fits perfectly. But we're going to line up the center on the curve and then clip along this side. Repeat on the other side. And it's really important when you are interfacing that bottom Decaville heavy on that you've got it nicely centered. Since the pattern has been in testing, Jenny did change the size of the interfacing, so you've got a little bit more wiggle room. But just so you know, and you want to make sure those edges stay together. They're kind of wanting to shift a little bit, but that'll create some issues later on. So keep those lined up. And we'll go ahead and add some staples. Keeping the edges together. And you can staple around the whole thing if you want. All right, so if you want to decrease your stitch length, you can. You could go down to like a 4.5 if you wanted. For construction, you can also sew it at that 3/8 and then sew it again at that 1/8 or quarter for structure, longevity, and to prevent kind of seeing your stitches along the bottom. It can help decrease the stress. And then we're just going to sew it slowly. Those staples are there to help keep it in place, but they're not going to prevent you needing to take care and caution when putting this together. You still want to make sure you're keeping everything lined up and out of the way, following the curve of the bag. And I feel like Jenny really loves to torture us with curved bottoms, but man, are they pretty in the end. And then just be really careful with those staples on your fingers. You don't want to cut yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and add that second row of stitching, and that is within your seam allowance. And you don't have to be as careful because everything is put together well, but you still need to watch out for your staples. Okay, so I'm not going to trim any of that seam allowance, but I am going to use a staple remover tool. That totally went on the floor. That's okay, I can see it. Hi.
I'm down here to color my page.
Okay. Are your eyes hurting? Yeah, you need to be careful not to rub the stuff in them. Do you want me to take it off of you? No? Okay. Okay. So that is our exterior completely finished. I wish I could turn this right side out, but I gotta wait. Can't do it yet. I'm not gonna trim any of the bottom seam allowances. Like I said, if you wanna glue this, you can. Go ahead and just fuse it. It's basically like gluing it. If you wanna mark out your side seam centers really quick, you can. But we also have marking. After the sleep, it's Easter. Oh, you'll be right back, okay. So we're gonna work on our interior of the bag now. And I'm gonna go ahead and start with my slip pocket because this is where I'm changing the instructions. So if you did not watch the cutting video, what I did was I doubled the cut height and kept the length the same. I subtracted 1 inch from the height though because we're omitting the seam allowance. And then I measured 1 inch on each side on the back side, and we're folding in this edge. So we've got a nice finished edge and we don't need to turn the pocket. And then I cut a piece of vinyl 1 inch by 12. Do you want to sit with me?
Yeah.
Okay, you can sit with me.
I need to go potty.
Oh, okay, go potty, yeah. Okay, so then we're gonna fold this in half. And I like to add some tape at the top edge of this to keep it together. But we're gonna fold this in half on itself. And this is just omitting the need to like turn the pocket. And I think it looks really nice in the end. And then we're gonna add this little binding to the top. Binding, accent, whatever you wanna call it. And it is a little bit wider than we need it to be. And that is so we can just trim off the excess. Well, I cut mine to the exact size I need it. That's okay. So we're gonna line that up and fold that top edge over. And this is my favorite way to make a slip pocket in a bag. I think it looks really nice. And it is so quick. It's just folding and measuring, really. So we're gonna top stitch that. And then we're gonna fold it in half. And then we'll grab one of our main lining pieces, which is a trapezoid. So you want to make sure that the shorter in width is the top. And we're going to line this up, centered. And if you want to add a little, ooh, yes, I love this one. We'll add a little woven label into the side of this. This one says a work of art. And you can just pop that into the seam that you folded in and then you won't see it anywhere. Okay. So back stitch at the top, sew along the side, along the bottom. Nice job. Okay, and then I like to do a little, what I call Pac-Man style top stitching, which adds 2 rows to secure the center. on the side edges. And then you can even add a rivet just right inside. I think I will add a rivet. I think that'll look really nice. I'm just gonna add a little rivet in that top corner, and then you could also add one in the middle. Okay, so that pocket, like I said, is a little bit different than the pattern has you do it, but she's just written it nice and basic, beginner friendly, which is great. It's great. Okay, so that looks nice. And we did back stitch in the center here, so it doesn't need a rivet, but you can add one. And make sure this is the shorter side, this is the longer side. I guess technically these are the shortest, but yeah, that's not the point. So we can set that aside for now. We can work on our zipper overlay side. So we're gonna need that other trapezoidal piece and our zipper pocket lining. This is the most exciting time because we're running out of pieces, you guys. Pretty awesome. And all right, I'm gonna grab a little ruler here. We want to line this up a particular amount. So I have my little ruler here, that's perfect, and I'm going to fold this in half as well so that I can mark that a little bit easier. And you can fold just one piece of tape if you want, or you can fold both, or peel off, I should say. Holding my ruler nice and straight, I'm going to line up that center and then press the top edge. Yeah, babe. It is getting pretty late, yeah. Oh, that's so pretty. It's pink and green. Okay, little woven label in there. And then we'll start sewing around the outside edge of the overlay. You like it?
Yeah. Why should you put it down for me?
So you can play with it.
Kitty's coming to you.
Hey,
No,
hey,
Kitty.
Can you go back to your craft table?
Kitty's coming
Hey, kitty. Oh, careful.
Can I help you?
Sure. Can you give me just a second?
Can I cut that?
Yeah, you can cut it in just a minute. I need to tie him first. All right, you want to get in my chair with me?
Yeah.
I love your eye makeup.
Thanks.
Looks like you had a lot of fun with it. Okay, we're not cutting it yet. Oh, rub it. Don't cut yet, please. I gotta tie some together. Are you really in pain?
Yeah.
Okay, keep rubbing it.
Just like you. What is that?
What?
What is that?
Oh, that's caution stickers.
Why could you have this?
It's a screwdriver
For what?
to help me with different sewing I can also change out my needle and my foot with it if I need to.
You can actually flip it to there.
Oh no, that's just the end of the screwdriver. You know, I designed that.
What?
I had it manufactured to look exactly how I wanted it.
What?
Oh no, don't do that, please.
I can actually do this with this.
You could, yeah.
Like-
I don't want you to, though.
Check the oil with it and then lift it off. That where the oil goes.
Yep.
You can put it right there.
Here, you put it right there.
In case you need to unflip it, or you can do it with your fingers.
Yeah, but it's smart to do with the screwdriver. Okay, can you cut it kind of right there? Oh, a little higher up. Perfect. Yeah.
Like cutting here, cutting here.
Yep, here, I'm going to
cut here.
use a lighter.
Like you're burning it.
It kind of melts it together. And then it won't come undone. Okay, and then we're going to cut nice and careful. Cut that open. And then cut around. This is tricky.
Oh, you can't do that.
Yep. With sharp enough scissors you can. You can just hold it, slide it, and that way you don't cut anything you're not supposed to.
Do that again.
No, I'm out.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, test that.
Yeah, it's not hot anymore.
It was.
It was hot. Yeah, don't pick it. No, don't. Hey, don't cut it. I melted it so that it stays. It's kind of glued together there. Look at that.
Wow, sparkly. I'm going to add the clips.
Well, we don't need clips yet.
Can I cut it out?
Cut what out? No, we've already cut it. We need to add our zipper pocket. So,
This
our zipper.
is zipper.
Yep. Oh!
Ooh. Sorry.
That's okay. We can put it back on.
How did you put it back on?
Slide that in there.
Never touch in there.
Correct. Especially while it's moving.
Wait. Yeah. See?
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Never,
Ever.
never. Okay. There you go.
We're gonna.
What are Daddy and Granny doing?
I don't know. I'm watching movies.
Oh, okay.
We're watching Baymax.
Baymax. Nice. All right.
And I'm making water breathing dragon crystals.
How are you?
They're almost ready.
How are you making those?
Cause I need to keep them in the package for 10 days.
What?
Till they're nice and dry.
Okay. How are you making them?
By different colors.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. I forgot to mention what I'm doing. So right now we are adding our lining face up and our zipper face up
What's this?
to both sides.
I wanna do
Careful with
some-
that screwdriver, please.
Okay.
Where are you going with it? No. Not that machine. Not with a screwdriver. No. No screwdrivers touch that machine because it's painted very carefully for me.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
No.
I'm not
No.
gonna. I'm not
No.
gonna. I'm not
Don't
gonna,
do it.
I'm
Please
not,
don't do it.
I'm just gonna do
No. Hey, please don't.
only on this machine.
Yes, only on this machine.
What's
Okay, and then we're going to
this?
sew at about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. You can do it. I don't mind. Got it up. Alrighty.
Told you.
Yeah, I never doubted. Watch out with that screwdriver pointed at your face too. Maybe clip it back. Yeah, or set it down. Alright. And then normally I would top stitch that open. Okay. You want me to help? Okay.
What's your new phone?
What?
I like the new phone.
Oh, thanks. Can you make sure you don't touch it? Here, you and Kitty can go play.
Hey!
All right, so we're gonna,
Nippy.
okay, press that
Nippy.
flat And now with our zipper to the left,
Where's my Play-Doh?
upstairs. What?
Where's the green Play-Doh?
I have no idea.
I just said it right here.
Did we put it away? So we're adding tape over our stitching, pressing that flat. And you can see these sit nicely without having to top stitch them. And I'm gonna sew along the bottom first, and then we're gonna connect our stitching. It is the more complicated way, but Shannon from Knotted Threads told me to do it this way, and I was like, yes ma'am. So I've been doing it this way. So I only peeled the bottom first, lining up the lining panel and centering the zipper tape within that opening. And I can move my zipper pull, and I can peel the top layer of tape as well. And then we're gonna just gently press that down. And lay the overlay in place, and we're going to sew along the bottom with both lining pieces up and out of the way. And we're going to start at like 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch from that side edge, because we're going to bring our stitching back together in that area. And again there. And leave nice long tails so that you can more easily tie this off. So with that tied off, now we can flatten the bottom and lay this other lining piece down. And we'll start on one side, lowering your needle into the hole where you left off. So you're stitching. And then sew along the top. Pivot, and then finish it off down below. Nice long tails. And then carefully pull your threads to the other side. Yeah, babe. Yeah. You can draw it. So we're tying that off. Yeah, babe. No, I do not. Okay, and then we'll trim this so they're even. And then we're only sewing the sides because we're going to be turning this bag through the zippered pocket. So we're going to sew through the zipper, like to back stitch quite a bit, and then I'll fold the bottom of the zipper pocket lining up and sew at a bit of a curve to make up for the bulk when we turn. And then we'll repeat that step on this side in the opposite order. So we'll fold the bottom up, sew it at a curve, and then continue up and straight. And I add quite a bit of back stitching, and then I just trim where I'm going to be turning it, and then flip that open press it flat. And there's that side of the lining. You can zip your zipper pocket shut. I'm basically sewing it this way. All it does is kind of reduce the bulky seams that kind of happen when you top stitch it flat and open and sew it all at once. It's fine either way, but this way is a little bit nicer, I'll admit. So we have our lining top pieces that we're going to worry about in a little bit. We need to work on our zipper panel, but we also need to work on that divided zippered pocket. Now, if you do not want to add the center divider, don't cut that piece and don't cut the bottom in half. You'll just cut the exterior as your lining and then skip those steps. Yes, baby. Yeah, Dorothy. What kind of bag am I making? It's called the Regina Phalange. Well, come here, I'll show you. You want to know who designed it? Jenny.
Jenny?
Yeah. Here's what it looks like.
But where's the other one?
What other one?
Like, did you have a video of this one?
I'm working on it right now.
This is your video?
I'm recording it, yeah.
And with me in it.
Yeah.
And goodbye.
Goodbye. So when I cut this out, I cut my lining a little bit wider just to help make it easier with bulk for the lining to sit nicely and not sit too small, because when I used just waterproof canvas, it would always end up being a little bit smaller on the lining because of the bulk, and it's just kind of a habit I've stuck to. So when I cut this out, I also measured my 1-inch line, and then I'm folding this in to meet the 1-inch line, which creates that 1/2 inch fold, because now we've folded it at 1/2 inch.
Mom,
Yeah, babe.
my paint.
That looks great.
I made it for you, but I have to cut it out.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. And now I have 1/8 inch wide double-sided tape where I'm going to add my zipper. And so if you cut your zipper panel so that your print repeated nicely, you'll add the tape. Oh, that's 1/4 inch. I don't want 1/4 inch. So that's where our zipper is going to go there. And then,
Mom,
yes.
it's going to be a surprise for you.
Okay.
And keep this is your postcard.
My postcard.
And we get, if you want,
Okay, I'm
we
listening.
can put this on one of your sewing machines.
I'd rather not.
Well,
How about you put it on my cutting table?
and we can stick it on.
Yeah, here. I can make it a sticker with this tape.
Yay.
Here.
Then I want to do it.
Okay. And then just peel that backing off. Did you get it? Here. There you go. There you go. Now it's a sticker. Oh, can you throw away your trash, please?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Not sticky anymore.
Okay. So keeping in mind the direction of your print, that's where you'll want to set your zipper. And we're gonna line that up first. And I like to keep it like 1/8 to 1/4 inch from that folded edge. Some people I know like to start it just under that fold line to help reduce bulk. It's really up to you, and it depends on your materials. I don't like it that far away from the start of the zipper panel. I just think like you're losing that much more closure of your bag, but it's also like, it's like 3/8 of an inch. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, so right sides together, lining up that folded edge, and the tape really just helps keep everything together so you don't need to baste or clip it. And then you can check to make sure your folds are lining up. And then you can do 3/8 or 1/4 or something in between along that edge. And then if you want to make sure your zipper pull doesn't come off, you can sew over the end of your zipper.
If I want, you can play with it as a doll.
Oh yeah, because it's Spider-Man. Okay, we'll trim those threads. Press that open. And then my lining is a little bit taller. I'm okay with that because I cut it bigger for a reason, and I just really wanted to make sure I was able to pull that together nicely. If you are not a big fan of this bulk, you can kind of trim those pieces down a little bit, but I'm gonna start by sewing along the top to help hold that down, and then we'll pivot. Then we'll just trim that excess off, no biggie. But it was nice to know that it wasn't going to end up too short or sit strange or anything like that.
I have a surprise for you.
Okay.
Ta-da! A paper doll.
That's so awesome. He's so well cut out too. You're so good with pair of scissors. Thank you.
And do you want to do a hard trick? It's how to make it stand.
How do you do that?
So we need to make the stand on the back.
Okay.
We need We need this sticky tape. We need this sticky tape. Mom.
Mm-hmm.
We need this sticky tape. We need this sticky tape.
And we're repeating those steps on this other side of the zipper.
Mom,
Yes, baby.
we need this tape. We need this sticky tape.
Okay.
I need. Thanks. I'll be really careful.
Okay. Those are pretty safe for you.
Look. I usually cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we need to stick it right here.
Okay, I'm taking a lighter to my extra threads.
It's very tricky. Can I keep this?
Yes, you may.
Yes.
Thank you for asking.
I'm gonna keep it right there. And then we're gonna make it. And then take it off. It's ready. When it's ready, I'll get the piece of paper.
Okay, and then repeating those steps to top stitch.
this paper because I didn't have any regular paper. And we're going to do the edge of it with the black marker.
And just trim off that excess.
That's our standard.
Nice.
And that's where I'm going to tape those.
Okay.
You can have this one.
No, you can keep them. You can keep them both. Just in case you lose one. Then we're going to fold this in half and snip the center. Grab your end with the zipper. Grab your lining piece with the zipper. Line up your center. And you can either tape this or baste it.
Cut off this end and this end. That's the end. Put it out till you see black. Just like my teachers. They see no black. I see. What? Is that my dad?
So, it's a little later in the evening. My helper is gone. Fast asleep. So I've got my zipper panel completed and attached to my lining panel. I like to start by adding that on the side with the zipper pocket so that the zippers are zipping in the same direction. You don't have to if you don't want to. And then we can line up our center on this piece here, adding the top lining panel. Move your zipper pull out of the way. We're going to sew this on at 3/8 of an inch. Turning the machine on helps. And then my stitch length is still at that 4.5, so I'm going to increase it to the 5. Totally your call if you prefer a different construction length. And then we are going to top stitch under the zipper panel, creating a perky zipper panel rather than a depressed zipper panel, as I like to call it. So we'll flatten that seam down. We'll sew right under that. And then we can go ahead and add this to the other lining side. Make sure the trapezoid is facing up. Pockets can be entered into. We'll line up the center of our zipper panel, making sure those notches fit. You can tape that down, clip it, and then I'm going to baste it so we don't have any shifting. You can also kind of make sure that your lining panels are even, just in case maybe your center marks are somehow off. Okay, I'm good. I was like, I feel like maybe I got a little cocky there, but I'm good. I did not add any interfacing to this upper lining panel. Make sure you're adding the straight edge to the straight edge. But I think it's okay to not have this part interfaced because like the exterior of your bag is already interfaced and whatnot. And I'll be honest, I don't know if this part calls for interfacing because I knew if I was going to be using vinyl, I really wouldn't want the interfacing. Okay, so we'll top stitch that up. And when you're working on the large or medium size, you're going to want to make sure that your other upper lining is out of the way. Oop. Okay. So, right now, if you decided you didn't want that center divider, you would sew right sides together and then attach the circular exterior bottom panel to your interior. But we are adding that divided lining pocket. So we want our zipper tape and our 4 pieces for that divider. Now for the small size, I've chosen to not interface this at all with anything. But if you were making this for a larger size bag, you could add a little bit of foam out of the seam allowances for a padded laptop sleeve, or you could add a little bit of fleece if you wanted it to have a little more loftiness than puffiness. But that is totally up to you. And I am applying my double-sided tape to the right side of all of these pieces. Man, I'm gonna need more 1/8 inch too. I just got more 1/2 inch at work. Okay, those are prepped. And we're gonna add our zipper tabs. You can choose to add 2 zipper pulls to the zipper if you would like, but kind of how I explained in the beginning, you're going to lose a little bit of area to be able to put things into this. So it's really up to you. So we're folding the zipper tab in half and then those raw ends into the center. And then wrapping it around the end of the zipper for both sides. The zipper tabs do not get hidden into the seam. They should be kind of sitting right outside that seam. Yeah. And then you could also use a lighter on the ends of your zipper if you wanted to before you add your tabs. Really up to you. Okay. And then we're going to grab our liner here. And now, let's say you've got 2 different fabrics you're using. You want to grab your exterior fabric and lay your zipper right side down, centering it on that panel. And then you're going to grab whatever your lining fabric would be. Let's say you wanted to use something a little bit silkier or softer for tech items. You could do that. You could even quilt a fleece or a foam to the inside of it to kind of get rid of some of the bulk, but really keep the protection on your items. But again, for the small, there really isn't a whole lot techy that you can put in here unless you've got like a Kindle or a teeny tiny iPad, which I think is fine. You know, it's meant to be a handbag, not a laptop bag. So I'm just pressing that. Come on, you can go to your spot. Go on. So I'm pressing these seams nicely so I can get a crisp edge. careful, keep going. But I'm thinking I might add a little label. And you can sew through the exterior and the lining because it will be raw edged in the side seams of your bag. You don't need finished edges here. Can you not? Dude, can you go to your spot? So now comes the fun what tag to use conundrum. I think that you got this. Oh, I do love these though. Fuck your negativity and kick today in the ass. Pretty much all of these are from the Heartwood and Hide. Yeah, I love that you've got this label. I think it's so sweet. And I think this one matches pretty well. And obviously you don't have to use these. Oh, that's pretty too. That was the Sonar collab. Okay. Yeah, I think this one's cute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this onto the exterior, and we'll have like a little tag within the divider. This little glue dispenser. I'll top stitch that into place. Pull your threads to the back. And then tying that off. Oh, that looks so cute. There's that. And that is my exterior because I can see the wrong side of my zipper, so that would not be on the exterior. And then we'll attach that lining side. And I just unzipped my zipper out of the way. Press this. One of the things I absolutely love about the Renew canvas is it holds when you crease it. Just the simple finger press, and it's like, yes ma'am. It's so good. So then you can unzip that about halfway. We're going to fold this on itself. And you really want to make sure that you're lining things up nicely. Ooh, rest in peace, little glitter clip. Overworked. Relatable. Okay. So then we're going to baste all of this together. If you wanted to be kind of silly and add another woven label in here, you can. And like, I don't think it would be seen all that much, but I think it would be fun. So make sure it's got a nice seam allowance and make sure you're putting it inside the two layers and not inside this layer or you'll never see it. Oh, what are the odds of that? Okay, so now we know we've got a nice full bobbin to finish off this bag. Because surprisingly, we are almost done. And then the trickiest spot, not the trickiest spot of sewing the lining, I guess where you'll kind of get some friction, I don't know, a little pushback, is going to be those zipper tabs. So you can double check, and then you can see there you've got that fun little woven label. And then yeah, we'll keep that at half there. Okay. So we've got our lining, and look, 2 pieces left. Heck yes. We are going to put right sides together, matching up the center. Both sides, wrong side, face up. You're going to sew these on at the same time using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, starting at 1/2 inch and ending at 1/2 inch. So you can measure that and make a mark. I'm just going to eyeball it. Yeah, that one's a little bit over. Not quite. All right. Okay. So we're going to clip this out of the way on both sides. And I'm kind of doing down and over so that it truly is just totally out of the way. No risk of it popping up into that seam up there. Okay. And then you can decide which side you want your if you're adding a tag, what side you want that to be on. Or you can make sure your zippers are zipped in the same direction. Unless you added double zippers, and then it doesn't matter. So we're going to lay this into the edge here. Clip that in place, and then we're going to shut that and sew that together. And then we can pretty much keep a consistent 3/8, but I may slightly increase to 1/2 inch. And if I don't, I'm just going to increase a little bit. Make sure you are not sewing through that bottom panel fabric. And then trim your threads. And then we're going to repeat that on this side. So you're going to have to do some bunching to make it fit. Line up the bottom edge. And if you are worried about things shifting, you could go ahead and baste that down as well. Because once you get this all together, it may want to kind of push back. Ben, you can come up here, but you need to go to your spot. So we're just clipping all that together. Thank you. And then again, make sure that your lining bottom is out of the way. Okay, and then start with that 3/8. Make sure you're back stitching at the beginning and the end. And then kind of help this along. Make sure you're not sewing through anything you shouldn't be. And I'm just kind of slowly increasing the seam allowance towards the bottom. Okay. So we're almost there. We're now going to finish sewing the bottom. So we're going to find those centers. I snipped the center of that panel when I cut the bag. Just slowly going around that curve. Clipping to the side. Okay. Repeating. So exciting to see an empty bin. I look over, no hardware left, just straps. It's nice. Now, if you need to staple again, do it. You do not want any shifting at this point. You've come so far. Okay, and then it's tricky. It's tricky to sew around the bottom panel. That's right on time. It's tricky. Always it. So you're going to do this in a couple of different steps, essentially. We're going to start kind of in the middle and work our way towards the side panel because you can't sew through it all together. So we're going to go slow, making sure things aren't shifting, and then we're going to get as close as we can to that line, backstitch. And then you can jump over it get as close as you can to that line and continue on, making sure things aren't shifting too much. Add some more clips. Okay, we're getting to that center line, kind of back stitching, going over it, changing the direction of that seam, and then carrying on. Go. You can check on the inside of the bag to make sure that looks okay. Kind of peek inside. I think it looks good. We've got one little pucker. And just double checking those seams, there's no holes. Peek inside the divider and make sure you've caught all your layers. But there's what that's looking like. I think it looks super nice. And then you can add your zipper end hardware now if you want. I've just got it tacked in place so that my zipper pull won't come off, but if it does come off, you can just reattach it. It's not the end of the world. But now that we have our exterior and our lining done, we're going to go ahead and we are going to flip this right side out. And you might think, well, I can't. There's a divider. You're going to just pick one side to flip, basically. So I'll pick the side with my zipper pocket. And then I'll remember to unzip it because we are turning the bag through the zipper pocket. Which, if you don't over interface your bag, isn't too terrible. But you're going to notice your lining does not want to sit nicely. And that's okay because it's not meant to sit nicely in this direction. So it's very much a trust the process kind of moment. We do want our zipper unzipped all the way though, so we can get that to sit as nicely as we possibly can. So we're going to grab our exterior that is sewn together. I like my zipper pocket to be to the back side of my bag. And then we are going to line up the center mark with the center seam of the lining. Make sure you have your right sides together. Let's start clipping. And there is this gentle curve to the side panel. It's really fun. And then if you've got center lines to match up on the top exterior, that's good too. You can point your triangle rings down so that there's no risk that you're gonna hit that hardware. I have definitely done it before and it always shocks me when I do it. I'm like, whew, goodness. And you gotta change your needle. Maybe you messed up your timing. It's just not a good time. And then if you would like to use your stapler to help you keep this together, It's not a bad idea. I feel like if this bag didn't have that like super gentle curve to the top, it wouldn't, well, it would still be important, but it would be a little less fussy to put this together. You still want to line up your centers, but it also makes it that much clearer what needs to be lined up so that you can put it together perfectly. So pros and cons, mostly pros. Oh God. I was like, what is this? It's Evermore. What are you doing right there? You scared me. My leg hit her and I was like, what is happening? Okay, so 3/8 inch seam allowance. And if you want to decrease your stitch length at this time, you can. And then I am just trying to make sure I push down my lining to where I can still see some of my exterior from the top. And I know this would be a great time to switch over to the cylinder arm. But I just really try to finish a bag, especially when it's a tutorial, on the machine that I'm using. Someone asked if I could do more cylinder arm videos, and I plan to. I am feeling less stressed as of late, and I feel like in the next coming months I can schedule some more at-home time for myself instead of office work time. So that'll be good because I do enjoy my cylinder arm very much. And I have a long, complicated history with cylinder arms, but it's good. It also can't hurt to trace your seam allowance on that curve if you're someone who kind of struggles with keeping it consistent. Me. But, yeah. You could also baste it from one side and then sew it together in the other direction. Right, I am just cutting away a little bit of bulk in the top panel. You could have done like that butterfly method from Knotted Threads Co. as well. Yeah, I think that'll work. Now the fun part. I think I'm going to trim some of this down. I wasn't going to, but I've got 2 rows of stitching on it. I think that's plenty. Almost friggin' cut through my stitching. I would have cried. Of course, the Kai is cut like butter. If you're worried about it, you can also add a couple of little snips into this curve, or even remove some of the fabric. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, Evermore is now gone. Great. Am I still recording? Yes. So now we're going to pull the exterior away from the lining, which lets your lining kind of sit nicer for a minute. And now we're really going to test the strength of our thread. And we are going to turn this bag through the lining. We're going to grab the base first. And you want to work kind of fast so that you don't completely rumple up your bag with that Decaville. Once you get one piece through, you can kind of start to belch the bag out. I don't know, throw it up, however you want to describe that. But once you get it so it's through the zipper pocket, hopefully you can see that. Yeah. Then it's just a matter of gently pulling it away. So it's not too bad if you know what you're doing. The bottom of the bag is just so perfect. And I always like to just kind of check all those seams first. Make sure it's all pushed out nicely. Then you're just going to stick the lining inside the bag. These colors are so beautiful together. Oh my God. And you want to kind of poke at that top curve, and we're going to roll that seam so that your lining is tucked behind. Yeah, and I feel like the Decaville light on the top band helps support the lining piece nicely. So it really doesn't need interfacing, but you do want to roll that seam or even push your hand inside the bag if you can, up against that top edge to make sure everything is sitting nicely and it's not like sitting inside of itself. And now we can take some time on the main lining of the bag to make sure everything is sitting nicely before we top stitch. If you want to, you can close your zippered pocket before you top stitch your lining, but you do not have to. Just kind of check in to make sure everything sits well. And this rounded bottom right here, you can kind of train this by clipping it together, letting it sit for a little while. But over time, it'll kind of relax. You've just got two layers of Decaville heavy kind of fighting each other in a way. But there you go. That slip pocket. Oh, this bag just feels so good. All the materials we picked. What a dream. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna close this up because when I finish top stitching this, I'm gonna wanna pop those handles on ASAP. Now, I feel like I've got enough tags in this bag that I don't need one in this pocket, but I'm gonna go ahead and add one anyway. Oh, goodness. I have not used my Mormino labels in a while. tuck it back in the bag. And then what's really nice about how far away, that sounds negative, but the zipper panel does not reach the top of the bag, so it's going to be an easier top stitch than a bag that has that zipper panel like right at the top edge. So you can see it's nicely recessed in there, so it's a little bit easier. Now we can top stitch it, and I'm going to top stitch starting on the back side, kind of at the top corner over here. Leave your needle in. It couldn't hurt to still move that zipper panel out of the way if you're worried about top stitching through it, but again, like the way it sits, it's so nice, you're probably not going to hit it. But be careful as you get towards the end because you don't want to sew through the end of your zipper. And then I just snipped my threads. I did back stitch, but then we'll just kind of straighten out the lining, make sure everything fits. That divider panel sits nicely. I'll add a zipper end later, but oh my gosh, does it sit pretty. Keep in mind that your zipper end can't tuck nicely inside the bag because of that center divider. Not a deal breaker. Just something to consider. Man, got this little thread here. Oh my god, do I get it? There we go. Just needed it to fray a little bit. Oh my gosh. All right, let's clip those handles on. You can see just that gentle slope on the side is so pretty. And again, if you want to train your bag, you can just kind of gently clip it. And I'm wondering like if you could add a top zipper to this bag. I feel like yeah, you could, but wouldn't need to. All right, so I've got my little strap rivet marking tool somewhere. Oh, sorry. All right, stop. Gonna need a lot of editing on this guy. All right, so this little tool is from Jolie Lee Creations. It's one of my favorite tools. I used to just eyeball this, but it's really nice to have this tool to be able to mark out. I just use A and C, but I think B and C might be for like around a slide adjuster maybe. But we'll punch those holes and then add our rivets. You just need 4 Oh, I need 5 so I can finish my strap. My crossbody strap. So just use a hole punch. Yeah, baby. Okay, we got all 4 punched. And then you can kind of decide, do you want the double-sided strap print out or print in? I want it print out. I think it ties everything together really nicely. So adding that post through to one side. And you're gonna add your handles. You're looking at the front of the bag and your handle is looped in a U shape on the front. Oh, so cute. Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I have not finished a bag in a while that I've been like, that is sellable quality for Lauren. This one feels like solid quality, good effort. So that's very refreshing for me. Shouldn't be. Teach people how to make bags, but you know. Evermore, stop it. Okay, she did. Oh, look at that handle size with it. So cute. Oh, it's so pretty. I'm a little sad I used this like almost defective vinyl, but it's just a wrinkly rink. A wrinkly rink. Who am I? What's wrong with me? It's just a little wrinkle in the vinyl. It will go away. All right. Me punch this strap. I love that. What was that about eyeballing it? Like I literally just did. But you could sew your other strap end, strap connector, snap hook on, or rivet it, either way. A rivet is quicker sometimes. Look at her. Stop. I think it's fun because when you wear it as a crossbody, you're just going to see the green, but if you're carrying it as a handbag, you're going to see that little pop. And then I'm actually not upset about the reverse strap. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's fun that the print is kind of hidden and it's not in your face. But that is our finished, mostly, Regina Phalange handbag. Small size from Sincerely Jen Patterns. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Little pops of Dorothy, little pops of cats. But I love this bag. It's so pretty. This is all one pocket, so either side you go into is fine. But you could divide it if you wanted it to, and then you've got this great slip pocket on the back for your phone or any easy to reach items, and then a nice secure zipper panel. Well done. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Bye.